My first experience with the shelter, 1962 or 63, and a very tiny kitten, 7 or 8 weeks old, I found. I was told to take it to the animal shelter, and I brought the kitten to the shelter, and I stood there in the parking lot, and I was horrified at what I saw. I saw chutes where animals were dropped into a chute, and I wasn't going to take this kitten and drop it into a chute. I couldn't do that. And I realized at that time that this was barbaric. When I first came to the shelter, there weren't rehabilitation programs. There wasn't spay-neuter. There was virtually nothing. It was lost and found, and when it was filled to capacity, being animal control facility as well, you'd fill it to capacity, and then somebody would have to go down the line and decide who was going to live that day and who was going to die that way. It was just that day. It was just really bad.
The Lewis and Clark Humane Society is celebrating 50 years in 2014, and it became incorporated in 1964 by a small group of people who wanted to make some changes and provide animals with services and to meet their needs for homeless animals.
By the mid-1970s, when Michael Kellner and her family became involved, the need was obvious for a larger, better maintained, more comfortable, safer facility.
Daggett's recently met with Kellner and has this profile. Kellner arrives at work each morning at 9 o'clock to smiling faces and wagging tails. Who wouldn't want a job like this? But it's not all fun and games. It's hard, especially when you realize 70% of the animals that come to the Humane Society are put to sleep.
It's a terribly hard job. Just to ask any of our staff, who really are the ones responsible for taking care of the irresponsibility in the community.
Kellner first became involved with the Humane Society, which was actually the city pound at that time, in 1975, when her poodle was impounded.
And in trying to get him back, I investigated the old city shelter out here, and I was really appalled at the conditions and the treatment of the animals. So I went to the city commission and I said, please change the conditions out there or I'd like to take it over. And to my surprise, they said, take it.
People then didn't realize you needed to spay or neuter or have shots or take your animal to the veterinarian. There were very few veterinarians in Helena. And our push was spay and neuter because too many animals were surplus animals, and people didn't realize that by letting their animals breed and just have that one litter to teach their kids about the gift of life was actually working in reverse because the animals suffered.
We used to take in around 3,500 to 4,000 animals a year. And today, through aggressive programs and through aggressive spay-neuter and aggressive adoption policies, we've cut that number now down to around 2,000, with an increase of the population of approximately 3 times what it was in the late 80s.
I volunteer here at the Lewis and Clark Humane Society because, for one, I love the place. I love to walk in the door. I love to see the dogs. I love to see their response to people. And I love mostly to see the reward that it brings back to the dogs and to give them back life that sometimes they may not have had in the first place initially, and just to see that is really overwhelming for me.
Well, the reason I volunteer down here is, number one, they'll let me. That was a big deal for me. You know, we would annually give money, but it just didn't seem like it was making the impact that I personally wanted it to. Came down at Christmas last year and asked if there was anything I could do besides writing a small check. And I knew that they needed pictures because I'd seen them in the paper before, and said, if you ever need someone to take pictures, I would love to do that. And they turned out they needed somebody. The person that was shooting them was no longer going to do it, and it worked out perfect.
Oh, don't hesitate at all. Just come on down and try it. You don't have to walk dogs or just play with the cats. There's thousands of things you can do down there. There's so many opportunities, and it's just so fun. You get hooked on it. It's like a drug.
The first service that we provide at the Humane Society is sheltering, and that is taking in unwanted animals that no longer have a home. They may be stray, they may have cruelty situations, or owner surrendered, and we provide food, water, and shelter for that. The second important service that we provide to our community is adoption. Any animal that is still remaining in our shelter and hasn't had the chance to return home will be put up for adoption. There's no set time, and we work really closely with the adopters to make the right fit for each the animal and for the owner. And one of the most fun things we do is a possibility, and that's a trial basis that people can take the animal and give it a shot in their home as kind of a trial run or a test drive, so to speak, to make sure that it's going to be a good fit. The third service that we provide at the shelter is assistance to law enforcement for taking in animals that might be in a cruel situation, meaning that they're not being taken care of in the manner that is required by law. Perfect example of that would be the Malamutes that we took in for Jefferson County. And there was 161 of them, and we did provide housing and care for them for about 18 months. A fourth service that we provide at the Humane Society is outreach services. This is an opportunity for animals to leave the shelter and go visit people in a business setting. And there's businesses throughout Helena who provide that opportunity for us. And it's a lot of fun for people to be able to see the animals outside of the area. We also provide education services for people as needed. If people need to turn in their animal, if there's a reason, we try and educate and help them or give them resources to contact so that we can keep the animal out of the shelter and in their home. We also provide volunteer training so they can start off on the right foot and make sure that they're following all protocols and help us within the shelter. The fifth service that we provide to the community is euthanasia and cremation services. It's a nice opportunity for people to be able to take their animals back with them in a fancy little urn and have them with them at home. And on our part, it's an opportunity to provide a comfort service for our community, and it's really important.
You know, we've needed a new shelter for quite a few years now, but it's become incredibly apparent as we've added to our staff. We've added an education coordinator, a volunteer coordinator, people that can help make the shelter a better place. They need a place to work. The animals, you know, we're all about mental enrichment now, and we need places for them to play and run and interact and not just housing. We're really outgrowing our facility because we want to become more of a prevention facility instead of actually just being a housing facility. We want to be able to have programs with kids and have them come down here and be able to work in service groups and have a place for them to do a summer camp. Education is where we're really trying to head, and with our new facility that we're hoping to get, we will have all of these places so that we will be able to provide these services that we currently can in this building.
Our vision for the new facility is rather interesting. We knew that we didn't have a large enough facility, and we had a pretty good idea that the current facility wasn't designed to be an animal shelter. We began working with an architect out of Charlottesville, Virginia, that specializes in animal shelter design, and it was pretty interesting working with the architect. Really, an animal shelter is part retail facility, it is part hospital, office space, and administrative complex. So you have to marry those three uses together into a facility. Certainly we'll have a facility that meets the community's long-term needs, and certainly we'll have a facility that is not indignant of those who call it home, of those who work in there every day, and by extension it will not be indignant of the very community that it serves. You know, the great Gandhi once said that it says a lot about a community in terms of how it treats its animals, and I think this new facility is going to speak volumes about the great communities that we call home.
The future for the Lewis and Clark Humane Society in the next 50 years is absolutely spectacular. There's so many things that we can provide to our community, and getting a new building and being able to provide more services and more and meet the needs more for our animals is just imperative. And so I just cannot wait to see what happens within the next few years, because I know we're going to make it.
When you make a gift to the Lewis and Clark Humane Society, you can rest assured that it's going directly to saving lives, because our adoption rate is in the high 90s when the national average is in the 50%. We really pride ourselves in having a low euthanasia rate. We're only euthanizing animals based on quality of life and based on behavioral and a liability to the community. So your gift goes literally to saving animals' lives.
I have to tell you that I'm a numbers guy, and I judge everything in terms of numbers. And what I have to say to the community at large is the Lewis and Clark Humane Society is a terrific investment. That organization is so incredibly effective at what it does that it is absolutely one of the best investments that this community can make. Period. End of story.
Cowboy, it's not your turn, cowboy.
You can't be quiet there, cowboy.
It's not your turn, cowboy.